Welcome to the Bearded Finisher Podcast, your one-stop show for all things finishing and coatings. Your host, Zach, and a variety of industry experts will guide you through the art of perfecting your finishing and business game. From seasoned pros to fresh faces, get ready for tips, tricks, and trends to elevate your knowledge and business to the next level.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode, Bearded Finisher Podcast. Today, we've got Mr. Larry. I'm going to butcher this, Larry. Is it Lanouette?
Lanouette.
Lanouette.
It's Lanouette. If you're French, it's Lanouette. Lanouette is an American version. Lanouette.
I mean, that's how I wanted to pronounce it, but I thought, that's my first going in and pronouncing names is never right. So
I hear you.
All right.
I do the same.
Larry here is, I'd say your main company is ICR, correct? International Craft Revival.
Main, yes, no, maybe. So my main company really is Consult Panache, and it's my consulting, and I've been doing that for about 9 years. And then a subsidiary, which we just launched January 1st of this year, is ICR, International Craft Revival. Mm-hmm.
So in your consulting world, Larry is, if you guys don't know who he is, Larry is an FPE, I would say
Master certified.
And that is that what the main part of your consulting is FPE work? It
is. I consult mainly fine paints of Europe, but I also have a division of that I teach learning institutions, the basics of painting 101, basically. Yeah.
So is it mostly on the consulting side, is it mostly brush and roll side, or do you do fine finish spraying, specialty finishes, or is it mostly traditional?
So I do everything, really. So my consultations go from 1 day to 3 years. So if you can imagine exploiting fine paints for 3 years, you're able to. It's insane.
I mean, I completely get it. I've, from my time back in the painting world, when I had my company in Oklahoma, I played with some Brilliant and some FPE. I mean, and I really liked it. I just, I don't know. I just don't have the patience for the traditional oil enamels. It's probably the best way that I can explain it.
And the 1 dayers, I cover everything. And by the way, it's a really comprehensive consultation. There's so much information just in the 1 day, just to kind of get acclimated. And then if we get further into the Holland lac, which is the tough one, then it's a mandatory 2 day.
Okay. So before we jump into all of that, let's just kind of kick it off with, so how old are you, Larry?
So I am 57.
57, born and raised. Where were you born and raised at?
Wilmington, Delaware.
Okay. So Delaware the whole time. That's where you're at now.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part. So
that's where I'm at now.
You're a lifer. And is painting something that was in the family, like your dad painted or an uncle, or is this something that you picked up throughout the years?
Not at all. So in 1983, amongst a grass cutting business, odds and ends, I started painting. And a friend of mine, he was 16, I was 15 at the time, and we started painting for the guy down the street. So that's kind of how it all started, really.
I'm from Oklahoma, so math in my head is not a strong suit. So in 83, how old were you?
83, 17, 16, 15.
15. Okay. So 15 years old, started painting, and were you like the most guys? You painted the house and you were like, this sucks, and hated it right off the bat? Or did you fall in love with it in the beginning? How'd that go?
I had some artistry in my blood. So, I love the artisanal aspect of it, but the business side, now, mind you, I'm 15, I established my first company when I was 18. So, the whole babysitting process of employees, that was a bit rough.
Been there. Yep.
But, like I said, I love the artistry. And I wanted to do something other than being a normal commodity, but I didn't know what at that point. I didn't know what. Yeah.
So did you take a break from painting at all to go try something else, go to college, anything like that?
It's a lot of people do. Yeah,
Everyone.
I did. I took a lot of classes at various colleges and learning institutions, mainly for business. I did go to Windy City Studios at one point in Chicago to learn decorative finishing. And this is when decorative finishing was big. And then my definitive factor of whether I was going to go do something more luxurious and something more long-standing, like the use of fine paints of Europe. So quality, right? I was in class and I looked at my the person next to me, and she was in the decorative finishing class. And I looked at her work and I looked at mine and I looked at the instructors and I just thought, yeah, it's not for me. So I started to, I said, yeah, I need to go into the luxury business. So, and that's kind of how it started. It's funny because you never know, you have all these grandiose ideas, but it just doesn't work out that way. And a lot of times it's for the better,
Yeah. I mean, it goes a lot to, when you're an entrepreneur, I mean, sounds like you are doing everything, making money. The path to business ownership, or even when you're in a business, you have, you can have it laid out to the T, but there's no straight path to success. I mean, you'll take lefts, you'll make U-turns and go back and start over until you find, what works for you. I mean, everyone can have a business. I've got a good family friend that started a business and, they wanted to do business in oil and gas, and they wanted to sell commodities. And I don't know, through like struggling in like 5 years, somehow somebody asked them to broker some pipe and they needed some pipe, and they're like, oh, well, I know a guy who's got pipe. So he helped him get some pipe. And then another guy called him. And instead of being a commodities broker, he's now like a pipe broker. And they just got acquired by this company for, I don't know how many tens to hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
I mean, you just never know what it's going to take. Exactly. I mean, you go down one path and what happens. You just kind of go with the flow. That's the best part about entrepreneurship, is you got to just kind of run with it.
That's it. When
you left Windy City and decided, all right, let's get into luxury finishes, what year are we talking there?
Okay. So, backstory to that. I started painting, full time. It was my livelihood at that point. And I decided to go into the military. So I was in the Gulf War and I was overseas in Europe. And the beautiful thing about that was the fact that I was exposed to the European paints and urethanes and varnishes, and also the processes over there that weren't like in America. So I painted over there, at first painted my landlord's home and, old farmhouse and things like that. And I knew it was really different. I came back to the States. So this is beyond my elevator little speech here. This is like the real deal. So then what I did was I came back to Delaware and 5 children, married, 5 children, and I had to resume the whole painting process. And I did that, and I end up obtaining a job from a prominent person down here in Delaware, and she wanted me to paint her house she called it Brownsville, Vermont, but it was Brownsville, Vermont, which is located near Woodstock, Vermont. And wow, I was just like, this is crazy. I spent an extra day up there just kind of interviewing painters coming through the door. I thought, well, this is amazing that they sell this product here. And so I took it back to my shop. Now, mind you, this is for the most part, internet, social media, the whole 9 yards. So I took it back to my shop for one whole year, and I had log books, I had clotheslines, everything pinned up, temperatures this, I mixed this with this, this is the ratio. And I really played with it for a year before I brought it out. And then when I brought it out, I started using it, and Fine Paints gave me, I think it was John Leahy Jr., he called, and he said, "Hey, Larry, I got this job for you. I want you to check it out." It was in New York. And it was to paint the Mandarin Oriental penthouse in New York. And it was under the direction of a gentleman, designer, Donald Ross. And so I did that for 6 weeks. And from there, there was a guy that was a prominent figure at that time in New York. He was fantastic. And he was sucked up by Martha Stewart when Martha Stewart was did a lot of colors,
Doing her designer phase.
Designer thing. Yep. And by the way, she just came back out, and Fine Paints has a fan deck of hers.
Oh,
now.
really? She's getting back into it. I'd heard she might
back
be
into it. Yep. So she's in. So then I end up taking his place. Now, she grabbed him for a year. I mean, and this guy was phenomenal. I mean, just drop dead phenomenal. And I took his place. So I started traveling around the country. So now I'm a traveling Fine Paints of Europe applicator. And, it was a lot to learn there. And then one day I sat down and John Leahy and I were doing kind of a show in Washington, D.C. And selfishly, I wanted some initials behind my name. I said, "John, I'm flying around doing all these, and I'm bidding against kind of the same people. There's a certain group of people that are actually flying around as well. And but I want some initials behind my name. I want to be the important, that guy." And he took that concept back to his father at the time. And, between that and whatever else they thought of, they came up with the certification program, which is really cool. So I'm so glad that they didn't take my selfish idea and they incorporated it to other people. And it really worked out. Yeah. So between John Leahy Jr. and his father, they were, the brainstorms behind all of this. Incredible. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. I've had some great people that I've consulted. So what I do is in my consultations, I take what I've learned through the years, good and bad, ugly, and I also regurgitate a lot of things a lot of processes that the other people have used and were fantastic at. I've consulted a lot of people in over 9 years.
I can imagine. I mean, yeah, when you get into that, and I've talked to Chade and Robert and some of those guys that are in that fine finishing world. And it's like, once you get into that, the level of fine finishing, it is a very tight, small community.
It is.
But it's one that pays very well. I mean, but the traveling is one of those ones. Was talking to Chade the other day. He was on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and it was like, man, like the amount of traveling with FPE, and now he's doing it with Vero, and I'm just like, yeah, you guys are crazy. I don't know if I could do that. How long did you think how to word this? So as when they came up with the program, you're still traveling. And then I imagine you're probably going to start helping with the program because, you're out there teaching it, doing it day to day. So how long were you traveling with Fine Paints, doing those high-end jobs to when you decided, okay, I got to get off the road?
Yeah. So I did it for many, many years. But what I realized, so to answer your question, it was about, let's see, I'm 57. It was close to my mid 40s. That I started to wind down. And And then, you know, it's something that I realized with the program, there were some voids. And basically my whole premise of a lot of my businesses that I've had was finding where the voids were. And the voids for me were the fact that there wasn't a lot of teaching going on. And then also fine paints, I realized early on that the eye candy of fine paints is hollow lac, which we all know. The money making of fine paints is with all the waterborns. It's with the Eurolux wall paint. It's with the Eco modified paint. It's with the primers. And I knew that if I could incorporate that into the repertoire to where that was the main crux of my business and I could upsell hollow lac whenever I wanted, that was going to be key. So, yeah. And, the other thing with that is, there are a lot of things. I mean, take the synthetic roofing material that you see on a lot of job sites today. It's the gray stuff that's, it's hard to rip. Very, very strong stuff. That actually started with Adam Fox. So Adam Fox, back and forth from Delaware to Texas. That was close to 3 years. And the guy's like crazy talented to the nth degree. And we were just trying to come up with ideas to curtail some of the dust. And he came up with this synthetic roofing material. And I was like, what? But, it's just things like that just built upon. And then the other part to that is, I'm from the old school where, the job that you're on is your next referral. I mean, that's all there is to it, So it wasn't about building my brand with pictures or, with hype. And, now I'm in a world where that's prevalent. I mean, you grab a picture, you do whatever, right?
It is the way, I mean, and good, bad, whatever it is.
There's good to it.
There's good and there's bad to it, but it is, our world has become so visual and digital. People are afraid to talk to each other face to face now, that it does make it hard for some of the old school guys that don't learn to adapt. I mean, you can disappear real fast.
Yeah. So that if I was consulting someone who's been around for a while, it was a different consultation than somebody who was younger. So I had to really, customize that consultation that way. But don't get me wrong. I mean, it's really about getting back to your passion and your love, because I've met a lot of people along this journey, and there are a lot of people that are fantastic business people, and painters, and I'm not saying everyone. This is not a blanket statement, but then I also come across the people that are really good, but they really hate their job. I mean, they hate it. They hate it. They loathe it. They loathe it because that passion is gone, and it's about chasing the dollar, right? So, at some point we want to make money, hands down, even from the beginning. But right. So then, why aren't you a banker? Why aren't you a stock guy, or why aren't you, whatever? You chose painting. So there is some type of artistic flair that a lot of people have, but it's been long gone since they've used it. So what I do is I kind of rekindle that flair. So it's not just sequential processes that I'm selling. I sell all-inclusive relove for what you're doing.
I don't want to call it a re-education because that sounds horrible, but
you'd be surprised.
It is kind of a re-education / let's see, I mean, what I would, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you are reminding them the reason why they got into this business, reigniting that passion for the industry. I do some coaching as well and some consulting, but mine's more along the, I coach guys on how to turn their painting company into a business. and not so much of the let's go out and do stuff, because I'm assuming you know how to paint, but let's implement some SOPs. Let's type up some SOPs. Let's, like, what do your numbers look like? How much did you make on the last job? And what has blown me away is the amount of times I'm talking to a guy and I'm like, it's September, and I'm like, what's your gross year to date? Yeah, I don't know.
No.
What'd you make on the last
Yeah.
job? I don't know. And I'm like, wait a minute. But like, I tell guys all the time that you're getting into that world of, guys say, I want a minute to make money. And I try to like restructure that. I was like, I get that, but let's look at it as, you want freedom. You love this passion, but you want freedom of money. Not necessarily you want the freedom not to have to worry about money. Use your passion to get to that. Don't just say you want money, because you can do a million things to get money.
Right.
Some questionable, some not. But, I mean, there's a book that I really like, and that's what they talk about is freedom of money and freedom of time. And that's where you want to reignite these guys' passion, is if you get the freedom of money, then you don't have to worry about it. Then you become with the freedom of time, and then you get to take the jobs that you want, not the jobs that you have to. You get to stop feeding that beast of what's around you and keeping all the bills paid. Because that's a rough one. I had 12 guys at my highest, and dude, when that beast is in full roar, man, it is brutal to keep. It's always hungry. It is impossible to get it going. And, and that's another one. And I'm curious, I'm in South Central Oklahoma, Texas. And what I always saw in the industry, and I'd love your intake on this, your input, is as a painter, whether you're going to be by yourself or start hiring guys, it always seemed like in this region, it was, you got to stay about 6 guys and it's manageable and you can have some freedom, or you got to have like 30 motherfuckers.
Right.
There is no in the middle. You're in the middle, and it is a grind, and it sucks. I mean, did you see the same thing up in the Northeast in your experience that it was similar to that?
100%. And then the number that I always had was 6, which was accurate. And then for me, it was 12. And what it is 6 you can manage by yourself. 12, you need help. And then that's where, how do you transition from you controlling all to you, giving some of that control to someone else, and then so on and so forth. So we know that you cannot manage 30 guys by yourself and everything runs great. So there's training programs to do, there's a lot of training to and also a lot of self-reflection. I mean, what do you want to do? When I start my consultations, I start off with an exercise, and it's the age-old question. If I'm a potential client, I'm looking for a painter to paint my house. Why should I pick you? Answer the question. And for someone to answer that question, and you'd be surprised how many people go, man, that's a good question. But I'm thinking in my head, every one of your clients and potential clients, that's what they're asking themselves. Why should I pick you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I really want to get rid of the fact that that A, you got the job because you show up. B, you get this time of year, we're in the spring right now. So it's a false hope. Right? Business starts increasing. So you're thinking, man, I'm doing something great. But the reality is you really haven't done anything. You're going to cap out at a certain number this year, like you did last year. And it may fluctuate a little bit, but the thing is, you go year after year after year after year, and you really don't do anything different. And so, this is why I thought, with fine paints, and because fine paints, you do exploit the product to the nth degree. So as far as being a cap, I mean, if there is a cap, it's so far up there. I mean, you can do so much with it. And then also you can ride on the coattails of fine paints and then grow your business like that. It's just like if I had a Ferrari dealership, right? And no offense to Hyundai, but if I had a Hyundai dealership, one is more prestigious than the other.
I mean, brand recognition matters. And what I've always really liked about the fine paints model is it's like a franchise, but it's not a franchise. They've got the system, follow the system, follow the method, and they do the marketing for you. And they have the brand recognition. They got the system. They got the brand recognition. They've got instant credibility. You get in that book, boom, instant credibility as a painter.
Yeah. And Zach, I tell people I don't sell fine paints, right? So even because I still apply, at certain jobs. I'm about to start a new job right now. Because again, I love the artistry. But I'm not swinging off a 40-foot ladder anymore. Those days are gone. But I tell people I don't sell fine paints. Now it may be marked on my shirts and my vehicle and everything like that, but I don't go in there and go fine paints, fine paints, fine paints. I sell my process. So I tell people, listen, I stay in my lane, and your lane is, as an applicator, is just that. You're an applicator. So you sell your processes. The paint store sells the paint. Now there is a crossover, but like I don't like the retailer to start selling processes across the counter, right? I mean, but then likewise, if your processes are top notch, and see that's the key. If your processes are top notch, why wouldn't you use the best paint in the world? That doesn't make sense to use a lower grade paint if you're doing everything perfectly.
Yeah, your processes are essentially, you're selling your processes, which sells an experience.
Yeah,
and the experience,
hands down,
is what anybody's buying. Everything is an experience in today's world. So you sell that experience, and that experience is the process, including the paint, that gives them the best experience, the best end result, whatever it is. Do you want me to use another paint? I can, but you want X result. If you want X result, we've got to use X product. We can't use Y product.
Right. And like I said, if you take them, be transparent, and if you take them through that process, right? So in my bids, my bids are 30 minutes long. Why? Because I'm taking them through with pictures. I'm using as many of the senses as I can, other than taste, for them to understand what my process is like, and what their home's going to, the transition their home's going to go through. So I even show pictures of a wall that's heavily spackled with nail pops fixed and everything, and I show pictures of my sanding equipment, Merca, Festool. I show them everything, including the synthetic roofing material. Everything to the point where they understand that my process is different from the other guy, and I'm able to do this. And then the crazy part about this whole thing is, you and I both know the most expensive part of a paint job is not the material, it's the labor, right? So yet we squabble about the material, but then the labor, and the reason why
you
is
skimp on
we
the
have
labor.
to reevaluate. Right, we got to reevaluate our process, because if our processes are equating to the type of material we're using, well, then there's a good overview of your business. So if your process is top notch and you go through everything, and by the way, I sleep at night, I did everything, and I bring the customer with me. I bid it a certain way, so they see every step that I'm doing. And in the end, it's they're almost in a corner. I hate to say it like that, but they're almost in a corner, because in the beginning of our conversation, they do want a good job, a great job, a fantastic job. Well, I'm going to present to you how it's going to happen as the applicator. Now, it's just common sense for me to use. It's almost nonsensical to use something lower grade after doing all these procedures. So it puts them in a corner to say, okay, do you want really a good job? Because here I am. I'm here, So then, that also says it goes beyond, hey, I just showed up, I get the job. Or, this time of year, I'm being inundated with calls and everything. So, I'm doing something right. it really needs to be, I'm booked 6 months out, 12 months out, 18 months out, because people are willing to wait for my processes. Fine paint sells itself. Fine paint sells itself. I mean, if I do even the walls, ceiling trim without Holland lock, and I use Eco on the trim and doors, it sells itself. My processes sell itself, and then also the paint sells itself. So stay in my lane, and that's what I do. That's the crux of my consultation. It's just, how do you do it?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I was taught by, my mentor was my father-in-law. He's 73 this year. Spent his entire life. I mean, he's entrepreneur, started businesses, but painting has been really at the core of it. He painted in Colorado, painted 4 guys. So he painted by himself at night, long story, 34-year business in Oklahoma. And he taught me a lot. He taught me some of the key things that I still teach today to guys, where it's just like, and people give me crap about it. Well, it is what it is, but there's a couple of things I'm a firm believer in. It doesn't really matter the size of the house. If you don't ever, in my opinion, need more than 2 guys in a house. Like, someone's going to hide, someone's not going to work. You're wasting labor. Like, you're not going to get it. You can put 4 guys in a house and you can put 2 guys in a house, and you're not going to get it done twice as fast. It's just not going to happen. I've never seen it happen in my 15 years. And then the other one was when I did estimates, and it sounds like you might be similar, and I'd love your input, is I'm the guy that when you're doing an estimate, I mean, I'll walk through, same thing. It's taking me 30 minutes to walk through the estimate, but I mean, I detail every single process. We're going to cover the floors with X. We're going to use this tape on the wood. Then we're going to use this flooring paper. Then we're going to wipe down all the case and base and the woodwork with X. We're going to clean the walls with Y. Then we're going to do a scuff sand with this grit. Then we're going to fill imperfections. I mean, just every single thing, building that process. And I'm a firm believer that it justifies that rate that you put over here.
Yes.
And
there's a value.
And I always did, my rate is, we'll call it $75 an hour per man hour. Here's how many hours I think this project is going to take. 200, 300, 1,000, doesn't matter. But when you walk through this whole list with the customer of what it's going to take, and then they're like, that's a lot of work. Well, that seems about right. If you got 2 guys in a house and it's going to take 3 months, 6 months to do this job, and then list materials out separate, but always give the customer to go option time and material. I don't care. My rate's $75 a man hour. You're going to take a risk. I'm going to take a risk, but I get there's still a lot of guys out there that I'm trying to convince, a lot of guys that if you will go this route, you will be 6 to 8 weeks out year round. It won't matter, because you're selling a premium service. No one else is doing it, because it's paint your house, $10,000. Price includes paint. Well,
yeah. What is that?
What the hell does that include?
Yeah. And, as a contractor, you're already in the negative. I like to say the customer's here because of Google. Customers here because they've painted previously before. They're here because maybe their parent has painted. Their uncle has painted. And so you show up and you're here. If you're lucky, you may be here. The thing is, you need to be here. And why? Because you're the professional, not them. Okay. So here's the thing. So I take part of what you just said, and this is really key. I'm glad you hit on that. So it all starts from the beginning of the bid. So when I bid 1 man day, 1 day, and I go through of who does what, and I go through each day what one person can do. And I take that list, that itinerary that I'm actually creating, and then if it's two people in the job, I'll go ahead and sanction off, what 2 people will do in that section. So when I get that number, I know I charge per man day. I know what I'm charging. And not only did that, I create a real clear understanding of how much profit I'm going to make on Friday, or whatever day it lands on. Now I created a clear itinerary, not just for my applicators, but for my client. So my client, I post my itinerary on the job site.
Yes, we're right there.
My client sees Tuesday we're doing this, Wednesday we're doing this. And the beauty of that is my guys, they follow exactly what needs to be done. If you're done on 2:30 Tuesday and it looks fantastic, don't go into Friday or Wednesday, because by Friday, I want to make sure you're rested. I want to make sure you're good to go. So I want you to go home at 2:30 and then show up again the next, and we're going to do Fridays or Wednesday's work the following day. And that to me is transparency.
Agreed.
It's transparency
So
all
true.
the way around. I have nothing to hide. And I think a lot of this chasing the dollar thing is because we've taken the process and we've adopted some things that we kind of want to put on the back burner, or kind of we shelter from the public. And 2 coats, we just put 1 coat, get away with it. So the reality is, why do that? If you're bidding it in a way that there's an itinerary, the client sees it, the client follows. Now, what does that build? Trust. And once I build trust, I'm able to go in and talk about other projects, because that's really what it's about. It's my trust of that client that they're going to pay me. And then B, the client trusts me. The other thing with that is, since I've adopted that process, no blue tape at the end. 0. I haven't had blue tape at the end on a project in decades. Okay. Because the client went on this whole ride with me. They saw I did everything possible. And the other part to that is, for me, telling people, listen, I don't know where you're going to put a lamp in 6 months when I leave. And if it's against the wall, I want that wall to look beautiful, when I leave. So, it really just comes down to, do people want a good job? Stay in your lane. Are you willing to execute a process that's like no one else? And if you are you willing to be transparent about it? So now your applicators aren't time managers, right? They're just doing that day,
Following the process.
Follow the process. And what's beautiful about that with fine paints is, I'm not worried about, hey, I wonder if this color is going to cover, with the primers being able to be tinted to any color, almost any color in the world. It's a no-brainer. So for me, fine paints, or any custom painting, or any luxury painting, or any painting in general, is about taking down the substrate, building it back up with primers, Swedish putties, brushing putties, high build primers, and then top coating it with your final coat, your protective coat.
That's just pretty.
That's the basis. Yeah, that's the basis of painting. So if you're able to bid it in that way, where you do have an itinerary formulated, that's half the battle, because the rest is just following it. You collect your money on Friday, we're done. They're happy. Let's move on to another project in the house.
Yep. I mean, the key word that you said that I also preach is put transparency back into painting. You got to be transparent. And if you're transparent with your customers, same thing. I had that estimate that they got. I had a version that was just like, the itinerary got taped to where, and as the guys go through, same thing. They're check marking when they got it done. Homeowner comes home at night. Oh man, they got a lot done. There's no questions. What'd you guys do today? They don't exist. The brand that builds with the customer, the trust, which then builds your brand, then leads you into 5 years down the road. That customer calls you once a year and says, hey, Zach, it's Ellen Mabry. Hey, Ellen, what can I do for you? Hey, me and the family, we're going to Cancun for 2 weeks. Keys are under the mat. There's a list on the island. Can you get it done before we get back? Yes, ma'am. It'll be done. And then it's just clockwork. You have those repeat customers every year on that premium service. We want you to do it when we're not home. We're going to the ski house. We're going here. And I mean, there is no, I want to know what you did at that point. Once you build that trust with the customer, because you were transparent, just stop hiding stuff.
Right. That's it. Stop hiding stuff. So I feel guilty sometimes when I charge for these consultations, because I'm teaching just common sense. But we've been on this hamster wheel of a commodity driven company. And, we've been on that hamster wheel, and it's hard to get off, because part of my consultations, I talk about how do you build a bigger company, the old way. Well, I'm going to increase in employees. I'm going to buy better equipment. I'm going to, and you have all these things that you do, usually in the beginning of the year. It's your New Year's resolutions. But then all of a sudden crap hits the fan. It's spring. Things are going nuts. You're just trying to keep up with the bids and writing them out and, doing a good job. And everything's out the window. And this happens over and over again. We expect different results every year. Hello, that's insanity. So what I realized that early on not in the mid 90s, and late 90s. And that's really what helped transform my company into what it is. And in doing so, like I said, I captured a lot of people, that their good, bad, and ugly processes, and how they did business, how they ran their company. And I'm able to regurgitate of the things I can say, or, so it's been great.
What's the, I just thought of this. What's the, probably been your best, I want to go worst because those are always fun, but let's go best trait that you've seen while you're consulting, or the best practice that you've seen consulting, where you're like, just a little tip for the guys out there in the community saying, saw X customer doing this as a painting company and went, holy crap, I've got to integrate that into my system, because, something that you wouldn't have thought of without seeing it out there. Is anything that rings a bell?
Yeah. Early on, I realized when you have a group of applicators, it was hard to manage, right? Because you had to decipher who's going to do what, and kind of, hey, you go over here, you finished here, you go over here. It was a nightmare. And there was a company, a well-known company, that they operated out of pods. So the pods of painters. So if you had an upstairs and a downstairs in a house, one pod went upstairs and another pod went downstairs. They were responsible for each location. They did not go and borrow each other's equipment or anything. They literally ran as separate companies within their company.
That is actually a really good idea.
Dude, it was so awesome when I saw that. And I thought, wow, that alleviates a lot of headache. And because once you have a game plan and then all of a sudden you change it up halfway through, you're kind of screwed on your profit. Really, what is your profit? Now you're doing this. Gosh, I hope I hope it works out. But if you keep things simple, and if you create that itinerary type of situation, right? Everybody's following, when everyone's done, and by the time they're done, you can move that person, if they're done downstairs, and the upstairs has another couple more days. And everybody stays and sticks with the plan. So it was categorizing people. And then the pods, they stayed together. So if you had a 2-person, 3-person pod, they stayed together, and the synergy.
Yeah. They worked together.
They worked off each other.
They hold each other accountable. They have the chemistry. I used to like that method, because all my crews were 2 guys and I had the crew leader. But I would always empower the crew leader. Like if something happened and they're like, you got to find your helper, or you're doing this job by yourself. Like, you need to find someone that works with you. So go find your helper. Here's your pay range. You can pay him. It's on you if he sucks.
Yeah.
Gives them a little responsibility, but it also lets them find someone. You're not just saying, here, work with this guy.
Yeah. There's been a lot of things along the way. I remember trying to obtain as much business knowledge as I could. And in lieu of my last payment, sometimes if I was working for someone who owned some big conglomerate, some company, CEO, type of situation, in lieu of the last payment, I would want an hour of their time. And I've done that. And we just sat across their desk, and I had a list of questions, and we just boom, boom, boom. So to me, that was real world education.
Yeah,
right?
That's an excellent idea.
Dude, it was awesome. And that really helped me out for many years. I remember taking a couple courses, and that was good too. So a mixture of both is good. And I remember the professor talking, and he said, you're going to sell a widget Why should I buy it? And of course, everybody's saying, because of this, because of that, because of this, and price and that, quality. And he said, I don't care. That's what everybody says. I don't care. That's what everybody says. Everybody says that. I don't care. Why should I buy it? And it just made you think, man, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, why should you buy? Because nobody wants to be, because with that exercise I do, nobody wants to be that commodity. But, as I pick on so many people and I say, why should I choose you? And it just comes down to, quality and all this other stuff. And everybody says the same thing. Now, unfortunately, I have to pick you on price. Nobody wants to be there. I mean, nobody wants to be there on price. So, but it makes you self-reflect, And then I also talk about, somebody also once told me, this is another pretty good tip. Let's talk about self-reflection. They would say, oh, hiring is a little tough. Hiring's really tough. How can I hire? It's hard finding people. And what I say is, the people that you're hiring, or at least coming to you for work, that's who your company is drawing in. I mean, on a personal note, if we're looking for a mate,
man, yeah.
Right. I mean, if you're living like, Hellraiser, then guess what you're going to attract, right?
Yep.
So so that's a reflection. So if you're saying, man, I'm having a hard time, well, it's because people don't want to work with you or work for your company. Your company doesn't offer something that somebody else does. So hence you're a commodity. So why should somebody come and see you? So a lot of times the egos are so big, they think, well, because it's me, I should work. You should work for me because it's me. But the bottom line is, in the end, it doesn't matter, because when the ego starts to take over, the problem is they can take their business from A to B, but from B to C, they never thought about that. A lot of us, that are even listening right now, they've taken their company from A to B, but they don't know how to go further. Like, what do you do? Unless you grow an arm out of your neck, what you end up start doing is like personal things. Look at the steak I'm eating, look at this, look at this. But in the end, it's about your company and how can you build your company. So if you don't make it about you and you make it about your processes and what you do, it's a home run. And it's a home run continual.
Yeah, it just grows forever. You quit, and my favorite saying is, my goal is to we got to get you out of working in the business and working on the business. If you spend your time working on the business, it will run itself.
Right. 100%.
And that's it. I mean, and I was just leaning back to what I used to ask guys. I love that. And I may have to, partake of that. My big question I always ask guys when I first meet them and do a consult, doesn't matter if it's a manufacturer that's wanting to grow or anything. My first question is, what do you want?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that to me is, if we don't know what we want in life, we don't have a foundation to start anything. You're just, as my grandpa always said, you're just peeing in the wind. You're not doing anything but getting wet.
That's it. 100%. I mean, it's so funny because just like I said, you corner I hate that word, but you corner the client, potential client, with your bidding process. I also corner people in the sense of, asking them, what do you want? And they all say, well, we want to be successful. I want to make money. I want to do this, that, and the other. So then you lay out these basic common sense things, right? Getting them off that hamster wheel of commodity and steer them in a way that the ceiling is really far up. I mean, you don't have to stop at this level here. You can go as far as you want. And what it does though, yeah, well, maybe, that sounds good, but, and I'm just like, do you want what you just said or not? I mean, I'm not saying I'm the only way by far, but if you just relish in what you've been doing and your ego is just so big, your ego does not pay the phone bill. And so, but people think it does, or it will. And again, you get from point A to B, you can't take it from B to C. You're not going to grow, period. So, hey, let's, do you mind if we switch and talk about?
Yeah, well, that's exactly where I was going to go. I was saying, hey, I know
I read your mind, man.
I don't want to keep you too long, but let's switch over to ICR and how, the consulting side led into ICR, and let everybody know what ICR is.
Yeah. So, in life, I always believe that the pendulum always swings from one extreme to the other. And it's just extreme. I mean, we get it in politics, we get it in the personal life, you name it. So when it swings, though, there's a bunch of people over here missing out on things, right? And through the years, I've used so many different brushes, and I realized that even some of the major manufacturers, they were not really, they were more general brushes, and they were using things like ox hair, ear hair, all kinds of stuff to make their brushes a little more usable for the heavily pigmented paints. And this goes for not just hollow lac, it goes for all the heavily pigmented paints. So it's been a couple years, and we've put together, my colleague and I, Rob Stafford, we put together this line of brushes. They're made in Europe, and they're made with a virgin polyester. And the difference between a virgin polyester in America and one in Europe is this polyester. Let me start with America. American polyester is dipped in a chemical. It's very, and it becomes very rigid, and it's very porous. So it's not a really high quality bristle. This bristle is virgin polyester, which means if it's mechanically softened. Okay, so if you were to comb your beard, 100. If you comb your beard 100 times a day, it becomes very soft, right? Same process. It's extruded to the point where it takes the stiffness out, and it becomes very, very smooth. This is almost like a woman's makeup brush. That's how soft it is. The other beautiful thing about this brush is the fact that we're able to paint with it, and especially even if you're using hollow lac or eco, and you start to obtain a curtain or a drip, you're able to go back and badger the drip out much longer than with any other conventional brush. It's that soft
because of the softness of the bristles.
It's soft of the bristles and the cut of the bristles. So these particular brushes were made for Americans. In fact, in Europe, because of the cut, it would be hard to sell in Europe. It's kind of crazy.
Because of the cut of the bristles and the shape of it?
Because of the cut of the bristles. Mm-hmm.
Weird.
It's
okay,
crazy.
That is crazy.
Very weird. Yeah. I remember when I took my first silver squirrel paintbrush over to Europe, and I needed another paintbrush, and I took it into the paint store, and they were like, "What is this?" It was in England. "This is crazy. What is this, a dust brush?" They were laughing. But, it's just a different mentality. So we came out with the Champagne series in various sizes. Again, great for a gloss, produces an incredible finish. Plus, you're able to, again, badger the brush stroke to create an incredible craftsman type of look. So it minimizes that heavy brush stroke. It takes it all the way down to almost a sprayed finish. Because they are kind of a European look and a European cut, I had to create the old American style, right? Angled, 2.5-inch angle, 1.5-inch angle, same bristle. It's just, Americans are used to this type of style.
So I'm gonna hit you on that one real quick. So on that European style, I got your website up right here, so I'm looking at it on the side here. That oval, more of the oval, it's kind of fatter in the middle. Like, is that the European style? I mean, I'm not 100% with brush and rolling. I didn't do a ton of it. Most everything we did was sprayed. When it came to wood and trim, but I remember somewhere I picked up that oval shape, and I'm like, why is this so much easier to paint with? It's amazing.
Yeah, because there's more bristle that comes in contact with the substrate. So if the bristle's soft, then you get extra, access to a smoother line because of the amount of bristles making contact with that substrate. The other thing is the fact that these brushes, the bristles only go down to this line here. And what that does is it doesn't hold a lot of paint. So it's not a forever washout. In fact, this is a brush I use for my brush outs to show people, and it cleans up really well. Like, it's insane. The bristles themselves are not hollow like a synthetic bristle. They're solid. So it cleans up really, really well. It's a long-lasting brush. And then we came up with these are our production brushes, and really cool brush. I shortened the bristle. I created a different taper on it, and also made them into angles. So we have two sizes there. And again, it's a production brush. This is mainly for wall, ceiling trim, flats,
Okay.
satins.
This is basically
Right.
for cut-ins and things like that.
Yeah, cut-ins. I mean, the ferrule's nice and thick. It holds a lot of paint. It doesn't flick. It's nice and light. Yeah, it's really nice brush. We just came out with that one. Hold on, there's two more here. And this is our spalter brush. So this is incredibly smooth. I wish you could touch it. It's incredibly smooth. So people tip off with this brush, or they use it as is, right out of the bucket. And this will produce a glass-like finish.
So this is the one when you've got some of these guys that are reaching out, that want to do some roll and tipping on some Holland Lac Brilliant. This is the one you want to use. I see those really thin brushes, and at glance, they just look like chip brushes. But I'm like, you can't use a chip brush on that. Right. Yeah. So here's the crazy part. Now, this is an exclusive for Zach. All right. So we have those brushes. These are in production. So these are just the samples that we have. And this brush is going to be the game changer, because this particular brush I'm about to show, it produces a sprayed finish. Straight up. Boom. This bristle is so soft. It's softer than any brush that I've found. This took a while to create from scratch. Man,
this is
so
going
thin.
to be the game changer.
How thin is that? I mean, what is the thick? I mean, that looks like it's less than a quarter of an inch.
It's not just the thinness, right? It's also the type of bristle. It's a different bristle than anything in America. All these brushes are made over in Europe. And like I said, it produces a finish as if it was sprayed. So this is the go-to brush for, if you don't want to break out the sprayer and do all that, you'd want to back brush with something like this, or even just use the brush as is.
So you can use it as is instead of, if you don't want to tip and roll or roll and tip, you can just use that brush. Are you going to be
100%?
Are you going to be doing that in various sizes? So if someone's doing some 4-inch case and base, they can get a 4-incher.
Yes. Yeah. So right now we have two sizes, but we're going to have a smaller 50 millimeter, and then we're going to go up. This is 100 millimeter. We're going to go up to 150, 200. But we found over approximately 5 inches, it becomes a little cumbersome. It's a big, thin brush. Yeah. So you gain better control around 100, 150, 120. So we're going to develop those, but they'll be in production. They're in production now, but they'll be ready for retail beginning of May.
So now, retail beginning of May. Do you guys specifically only sell on your international craftrevival.com, or are you going to sell through distribution as well?
So we're just selling through distribution and internationalcraft.com. So right now, we're in stores in Pittsburgh, in LA, in North Carolina. So we're in various stores in Delaware, and that's the goal, to get us in more and more stores. But we also sell things that are not in retail, and we sell rollers that have ball bearings inside the roller. Incredibly, it's insane.
Oh man!
Which come with the roller cage.
Yeah, so it actually rolls correctly.
Unbelievable, and super, super absorbent. We only sell those on internationalcraft.com. Hats off to Chade, because he loves them. He keeps buying them. Fantastic, durable roller. So, and then ancillary things. We sell Nella this is something I've actually used, but Nella blades and Hawks. But we sell those things, but the brushes, we're looking to really sell them in stores. So when I do these consultations, retail consultations, I give the retailer the option to be able to buy my brushes beforehand. So when I'm doing a hands-on presentation, people say, where can I buy these brushes? I say, you can buy them right here from the retailer. So that's how we're kind of
that's how you're building into the distribution model.
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Because they see the demand that day.
Yeah. And then on your website, I've just kind of pulled it up. Do you list your distributors on there?
Not yet, but we will.
We need to get a list of your distributors, and we'll put it out there in the show notes of this episode. So people that are out there that are listening, they can go pick them up and stuff. So what about, real quick, and we'll wrap it up. There's a couple things that I always like, on the consulting and finishing side, because you did say you're still doing some finishing. Any fun, exciting projects coming up that you can share?
That I can share. That was the key.
I mean, I always, in that world, I know there's a lot of NDAs signed.
Yeah. Let me just put it this way. There is a couple projects that we're doing, that we're filming step by step. And let me just leave it there.
Well, let me ask you this.
Really cool stuff.
With that being involved, and you do the consulting and helping people, do you have, and if you do, I'm going to follow up in an email, a YouTube that people can go to where you have some like content out there where people can learn about what you do, learn about the consulting a little bit, and maybe reach out if they need some help?
Well, if you go on to consultpanache.com, that's going to give you a real detailed explanation of what I do. But as far as content of exactly what processes and things of that nature, that's to be continued. That's coming.
So make sure, we'll get everybody to make sure they're following you on social media so they can get those updates when it does come. Okay. And then a couple more last ones. One of my favorite ones is, Larry now having a beer runs into Larry at 19. Any advice you would give to yourself to do differently or to keep doing and do more of?
Yes. So I'm glad we're just talking about professional.
Yeah, we'll say just professional. Yeah. Personals, that's a whole nother hour episode.
I need more than a beer. So professionally, yes. And this sounds pretty basic, but it's cut the ego off. The ego will only take you to so far. And what happens is when the ego gets too big, you think it's kind of like what was it? The show with the singers and everybody sounds crappy. American Idol.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And it's that whole mindset that, hey, I can sing. My friends even said I can sing, but the reality they couldn't. And I mean, that transcends through your personal life. It transcends through your company. So I wish that I did not have that whole ego-driven company, because that was many years of my life that I realized, wow, where would I be if I wasn't feeding my ego?
You just got in your own way.
Dude, that was crazy. And then once I stopped, in fact, this interview right now, many people have tried to get me on a podcast or just a video and just, hey, talk about this, put up some YouTube stuff. And I thought about that, and I really had to mature. I had to mature to the point where it's not about my ego. Who am I, right? It's about helping others and doing, and that's what it's always been about from the beginning. It's just sometimes my ego got in the way, and it just became, and I realized, I got from point A to B, right, with my ego, and my ego thought I was going to C or D or E, but I really wasn't. My income didn't say that, who I really was on the outside. And the people that I thought, wow, they like what I'm doing, they like who I am, I realized that if I stopped just a tiny bit of what I was doing, they went away, So, why were they there? So it really just comes down to have some meat with your potatoes. And that's what I would tell my 19-year-old self.
That's good. That's excellent advice. Get out of your own way. Get rid of the ego, man. It will make a huge difference. The earlier you do it, the better.
Yes.
And it's hard. Us 19-year-olds are just full of piss and vinegar and want to go after everything 90 miles an hour.
But here's the thing, Zach. We can all say, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do it. But if you don't have a roadmap to be able to do that, because if you're going to rely on your own self, good luck, because it's your ego that's going to start dictating what that roadmap is, right? So it's a matter of going back to wisdom, going back to, Google only says so much, going back to wisdom and saying, okay, listen, how can I get from point A, B, C, D, all the way up as far as I want to go? And that, tell me the roadmap. What's the next thing? I leave people with homework on my consultations. And once you do the homework and everything looks solid, let's move on if you want to. If you don't, that's fine. But, let's move on. So having that roadmap is key.
I like it. And then finally, just let this is more of a fun one. Let's, I always want my community and listeners to get to know the guest. What's Larry away from finishing? What's a passion? What's something that might surprise us about you?
That's a good one.
A lot of in this world, a lot of our lives are paint, and my wife and I get caught in this. A lot of your self-worth is wrapped up into your business identity. So like getting people outside that box, like what are you outside of business? Like, let's explore that a little bit.
Yeah. I like to look forward, and I like to not look back except for the learning process. So, for me, I enjoy my own personal growth, and I like to do things, whether it's through, my church or other learning, to become a better person, in general. That's really key. I also want to get back to the artistry of sculpture. I like to do sculpture.
Oh, that's cool.
Having more time and things like that. Yeah, I really liked it. So it's doing things like that. I was retired at one point when I was 48, and I didn't do anything for 2 years. Moved up to Connecticut, and then met this wonderful woman. She brought me back to Delaware, married her. And there was a lot of self-reflection, and I realized, there's more to life than what Larry thinks. I need to find out what else is out there.
So always on the search for knowledge, and
always on the search. I've told all my kids, I told them all, you're going to fall. And when you fall, you got to pick up your bootstraps and keep on going. You might not end up where you thought you were going to be, but you're going to end up somewhere.
And you're going to learn from it.
And you're going to learn from it. And that's the key to life, because a lot of people just sit down and they lay down and then that's it. There's no rocking chair in my future. It's all about just, let's have a good time, YOLO, but do it wisely, because I want to live, as far as I can. Yeah. YOLO means different now than it did back then. But it's just a matter of, again, growing myself, and then growing others and bringing them into that kind of fold, to where you see growth in them, whether it's your children or family members or friends or whatever.
That's an awesome outlook. That's something to really strive for. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Larry, man, I appreciate you coming on the show. This was a ton of fun. Learned a lot. I feel like we could go for another hour, but I don't want to take up much more of your time. But man, again, thank you for coming on. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
For all you guys out there, make sure you're following us, like us, make sure you stay up to date. Every Monday, new episode coming out, and we will see you next week.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. We thank everyone for joining. Keep hustling, keep learning, and never settle for anything less than your best. Remember, the path to perfection is a journey, not a destination. Until next time.